Hey, O's fans. Well, that was not a great weekend for the Birds in Pittsburgh. No doubt about it. The Orioles lose on this Sunday 8-2. They got swept by the Pirates, and now they'll head to Chicago and try to regroup and get back in the win column on Monday night against the White Sox. Welcome in, O's fans. You are watching a brand new show. It's our debut. It's Birdland Territory as part of the Foul Territory Network. I'm Steve Melewski, so thrilled you're with us, joined by Tim Barbalace of 105.7 The Fan in Baltimore. You hear Tim weekdays from 2 to 6 on Inside Access on 105.7 The Fan. So great to have Tim with us, and a familiar face to Oriole fans. Former Birds pitcher Brad Brach was with the ball club for 5 years and pitched so well for the Orioles to a 2.99 ERA. And on the Orioles watch, he made the All-Star team in 2016, pitched in the playoffs a couple times. So welcome, Tim and Brad. Glad to have you part of this.
Yeah, glad to be here. This is going to be fun. I'm excited to get into some of the discussions we're going to have throughout the year, and it's fun to get back into the flow of watching some more baseball, and especially follow the O's here. And looking forward to just everything we're going to get to discuss this year.
Absolutely, yeah. We're going to have fun, guys. Even if the Orioles didn't have a fun weekend in Pittsburgh. And Tim, I'll start with you. I mean, we're disappointed in the team's play this weekend. They've got to clean it up. And it's just a rough weekend. What stood out to you besides the fact that they just didn't get a victory?
Well, I think what concerns me, Steve, and I'm not hitting the panic button. We are all of 9 games into the season at this point, but a couple of concerns that we had heading into the year, the defense, and not a ton of plus defenders on this club. And you saw that on display Saturday, a couple of PFPs that Shane Baz and Nunez ended up messing up. We saw today Jeremiah Jackson not having his foot on first base on a bunt. So I think the defensive struggles have definitely stood out to me. And Chris Bassett today, it was just a rough second game for him in Baltimore. He just hasn't been able to find a feel for his sinker. And we saw that in his first start against the Rangers, where first time through, he leaned into it, then kind of leaned more into the curveball. You kind of saw some of that today. He got hit by a comebacker. I couldn't believe that he even stayed in the game, 112 miles per hour off the bat. But the O's are just finding themselves in these early inning deficits. It's been 4 times now that the starting pitcher has given up 4 earned runs in the second inning.
Yeah, some rough stats right now, no doubt about it. The Orioles scored just 8 runs in 3 games in Pittsburgh. They've scored 2 runs or less 5 times already, 5 times in 9 games. So they're actually a game behind their pace last year, which was such a rough start. They were 4-5 then. They're 3-6 now. So, Brad, you've been on some really good Oriole teams, but even good teams have bad stretches. I think we hope this is going to prove to be a good team and that this is going to prove to be a bad stretch. But from the mindset of the clubhouse and the players, what do they have to think about and do right now to get this turned around?
Yeah, I think like you said, it's like 9 games into the season, but everything is obviously under a huge microscope right now with how the team started last year and just how they got it just seems sluggish. It seems to be some, like we were talking about the PFPs and a couple of defensive things that they'll clean up and they'll get better with it. And I think you talk about in spring training, all the PFPs you do and all the ground balls you take, but when you get into game speed, everything just kind of speeds up on you. And that's what I saw with Nunez yesterday in that one play. It's like he made the pitch, got exactly what he wanted, and he's looking to toss it to first base without having the baseball. And it's hard to replicate those kinds of things in spring training. And when you start getting the big league speed of everything added on top, the little things become the big things, and you give extra 90 feet on the bases, you give extra base runners when guys are walking guys, and that's how these things can kind of snowball. But back to your point with the slow start, the guys aren't they're not panicking. I've been on Orioles teams where you get swept early on and you get on the plane and you head to Chicago like they're doing tonight, and they won't even remember this series come tomorrow. So that's a good thing about it all. You want to see the little things kind of cleaned up here, and you're hoping, like you're saying, for a good season. Those little things become big things when you get off to a bad start, like we're talking about today.
Yeah, I mean, is 9 games enough to mentally get down a little bit, or is that not going to happen?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think you know what it is too. It's the first road trip of the year where you're leaving your families, you're leaving your wives, girlfriends, everybody for the first time. It's like you go to spring training, you're all together. They went back to Baltimore. They had opening day. They're all together. So this is like the first time getting away and getting on the road. Sometimes it can be a good thing, but sometimes it just takes a little bit to get going. And I think that's really all this is a case of. I mean, like we said, they have the pieces to win. This team is a winning ball club, and they just haven't shown it to this point. But don't panic yet. It's only 9 games in. I don't think anybody in that clubhouse is having any kind of panic either.
I know no one's panicking, Brad,
Yeah.
but I think something that Steve and I were talking on opening day at Pickles Pub on 105.7 The Fan, how, look, it's not the end all be all, but you would like to get off to a good start this year just to kind of flush the mess that was the 2025 season, and how the schedule set up. Their first 25 games, they only face 2 opponents, 6 games total against teams with win-loss totals projected from odds makers of over 500. So it's not the end of the world, but I think getting back on track here, especially this upcoming week against a White Sox team that's done really well against the Blue Jays, it would be big.
Yeah, and I think that is a good point too. Like when you're talking about last season and the roster's very familiar with how the season started and what ended up happening with that season, you just definitely don't want to find yourself 10 games below 500 at the start of May. That's worst case scenario. That's borderline red line territory of talking about even having a shot to get to the playoffs. So I definitely agree with what you're saying with that. You definitely don't want to find yourself 5 games below, 10 games below here the first couple of weeks. So I can definitely understand where the concern is leading from last year into this season. So I definitely see where you're coming from with that.
It's interesting. I think the clubhouse will handle it fine. There are enough veterans in there to show the way, and the young guys have been through their ups and downs. But there's also a new coaching staff, mostly new, and a new manager in Craig Albernaz. Let's start with you first, Tim. What's he going through right now? Because he's been really in spring. We've seen his confidence level. We've seen how he's blended so well with the team. He seems to find the right balance between being kind of, their friend and their boss sort of thing. And yet this has got to be a little bit of a test for him.
Well, I think that's the thing, Steve. You don't know what you don't know. This is Albernaz's first tough stretch, and this is the beginning of his managerial career. And we saw some frustration boil over today in which he got ejected, where it looked like Blaze Alexander, he was not granted a timeout. Albernaz is chirping at the ump, and he ends up getting tossed. But I think we don't know how Craig Albernaz is going to react. And I think that's where the importance of the veteran leadership. And Brad, I know we had you on my show a couple weeks ago just talking about the importance of having a Pete Alonso, having a Chris Bassett, guys that have been in the majors for quite some time now, experiencing the high highs, experiencing the low lows. And we've heard so much about their leadership throughout spring training. I think those 2 guys, they could be big for Albernaz right now.
Yeah, I think so. I think I think that the key to that is having a position player and a pitcher. You have 2 guys who have been through, like you said, they've done everything in their career to this point, the highs and the lows. So they know how to deal with it. And this is such an interesting group, I think, of, we call them the young guys now. They're in their 3rd, 4th, 5th season, some of these guys. When I was doing some of the games on Masson, it was these guys are rookies and they kind of didn't know what was happening. Next thing you know, they're winning 100 games. Now on the reverse side, last year, they saw the lows and they know what that feels like. So it's such an interesting roster when it comes to like their superstars that have been with the Orioles this whole time, because they have experienced both of those already in such a short career, and the team leans on them. They need those guys to step up and do what they expect of them if they want to get to where they're trying to go this season.
One thing we're going to be tracking is defense for this team this year, because I think people are thinking team defense overall could be a shortcoming, or the Orioles will have to prove to us that they can cover that. And so there were some physical errors, there were some mental errors, and I'm not sure, Brad, how teams overcome that, but it wasn't all bad. Let's look at Kobe Mayo, the double plays he turned early, and some of the throws he's had have been good, but there's just a couple of leaks right now that has to get cleaned up.
Yeah, and like the ground ball yesterday, it's not a big deal. He got the out at first, but it moves the runners from 2nd to 3rd, as opposed to maybe turning a double play, taking that guy out of scoring position. And that was just one of the huge things. I distinctly remember Buck talking about all the time, the extra 90 feet. And it was just it somehow will come back to bite you at some point. And it kind of seemed like it all just showed up this weekend in Pittsburgh, and it really showed up in a big way in that game yesterday with just really those 2 plays that, I mean, it's hard not to say they lose that game yesterday if they make those two individual plays. And that's part of baseball. It happens. But like you're saying, if that was a huge concern going into the season, it kind of just showed its ugly face early on here.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it seems like there's been one or two of those instances pretty much in all of these 9 games. And Brad, just take us in the mind of a pitcher on the mound. Like, is that in the back of your head at all with the defense struggling? You have to have such a short memory being a pitcher.
Yeah, big time. And I mean, I don't think you're going to change the way you're pitching, but you're like, I think in the way the baseball is played today with how many strikeouts there are now, I think that's in the back of their mind more than like worried about a ball being hit somewhere. It's like, I got to strike this guy out. I got to strike. And that's when things that's when you hang the breaking ball. That's when you don't locate your fastballs because you're so concentrated on thinking you need to strike everybody out. I know for me personally, and I know it's just not a place you want to be when you're sitting there on the mound going, I got to strike this guy out. There's no other way to get this out here. I got to do this myself. And that's definitely what you don't want to do when you're on the mound. That's the last thing you want to be thinking about. But maybe it's creeping in the back of some of these guys' heads. I don't think it is, but it's just an interesting point to bring up that who knows, maybe it is starting to creep in early on here. And that's just not something you want to see continue. And hopefully they can nip it in the bud here. If not in Chicago in this next 6 games, really just kind of tighten it up, get it back to how they were feeling good coming out of spring and just kind of know that, okay, we got this now. Let's get the ball. If the ball's on the ground, let's turn 2. Pitchers get the strikeouts when you need it. Let's cover first base when we need to. Let's make the plays there too. And it just kind of, everybody feeds off each other, I think, when you start making all those kinds of plays.
So a rough weekend in Birdland in Pittsburgh as the O's lose 3. Now on to Chicago. The White Sox may be sweeping the Blue Jays, by the way. So no picnic as they move on to the next leg of the road trip. But there were some things to like about Oriole baseball so far. So let's get into that and talk about what we've liked so far from this team. And I'll start, guys. I like the way Adley Rutschman's swinging it right now. I mean, he is obviously a marked guy after kind of 2 down years. We've seen him have an 800 OPS, and those fans know what he can do. 2-time All-Star. But last year, his OPS was 673, and his OPS plus was below average, 90. He's at 964 right now. He didn't play today. Got the day off. 182 OPS plus, 333 average, 440 on base. And really, it's the metrics within that, how hard he's hitting the ball. I mean, Adley's exit velocity is way up. Again, small sample, but it's 93.1 on average. His hard hit rate way up. His expected slugging numbers are way up. He's squaring up the ball according to StatCast metrics, and he's putting the ball in play. He's not swinging and missing much at all. He's actually even attacked the first pitch a couple times, which you almost never see Adley Rutschman do. So there is a lot to like about the way he's swinging it. Yes, he did get off to a good start last year, and then by the end of April, he wasn't hitting. So we got to see more, but that's what I like so far. How about you, Tim?
Well, Steve, first on Adley, I'm totally with you. And something that I've been saying for years now, I don't think it's coincidence. You look, when he came up in May 2022, they had a losing record at that point. He was really, really good his rookie season, finished second in Rookie of the Year voting. O's surprised, had a winning record. 2023, he was an all-star. They won over 100 games. 2024, the first half of the season, they had the best record in the American League. Adley Rutschman, all-star again, was fantastic in the first half. But the past year and a half, Brad, when he's been scuffling, this team has been scuffling. I don't think that's coincidence.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think, being a catcher is huge. He's a marquee position. He's dealing with the pitchers. He obviously has to hit every single day, being a switch hitter on top of all of that too. So I think you're right. I think he adds so much to the team in so many different ways that when he's going, like you're saying, it's not a coincidence. When he's going well, the team's going to do well. When he kind of struggles, it's going to come from him. He's the captain of the team when he's out there. And it's like you're saying, he's just kind of the catalyst of everything that happens on the mound and in the batter's box. So I think you're right. There's no non-coincidence with how the team does with him.
I'll give you a couple names for me, and one being Blaze Alexander. And I don't think that Mike Elias anticipated that Blaze would have this big of a role this early on in the season. But remember when they acquired him and they gave up Cage Stroud, and bullpen has been a big question mark heading into the year. It seemed like Stroud would have made this club. They gave up Stroud to bring in Blaze Alexander, and then Jordan Westburg went down. Then Jackson Holiday went down. And Blaze, he's really had a great start to the season. How about that diving stop in foul territory the other day, Brad? That was a Manny Machado.
Oh my God,
play.
that's the first thing I thought when I saw that. I've seen that play before, a different number, but seen that before in this jersey.
It was unbelievable. And the fact that, hey, Blaze is hitting. He started his first 5 games with a hit. He was on base again yesterday. I think Blaze Alexander is off to a really solid start.
Yeah, he's doing a great job. And I think just the fact that you can play him in multiple positions. I don't know what his history was shortstop, but the way he made that play at third base, I mean, if you had to get shortstop off his legs for the day, you could plug him out there. I feel like he could play some shortstop too. So that's invaluable to have on a roster. I think he's doing a great job too. And for me, just seeing Taylor Ward, I really like that pickup this offseason. You know, everybody was with Grayson Rodriguez. He had so much potential, so much hope for Orioles fans, and it just kind of didn't work out. Unfortunately, with all the injury bug that he was kind of getting there when he was in Baltimore. But I think Taylor Ward's huge for this lineup. With him, if you wanted to put Henderson at the bat first and put him second, I think you could swap those guys. You could move him to second and move Henderson to third if you wanted to move the lineup around a little bit. I just think the way he approaches being leadoff is really impressive. Yesterday, he had a couple walks without even swinging the bat. And it's when the guys up there and pitchers know that just means he's going to get more pitches to hit as the season goes along. And that's, in my opinion, I think the more he takes his walks, the more that these pitchers early in the game are going to have to attack him. And that's what you want. You want to have him on base for Pete. You want to have him on base for Adley and for Henderson and for all these guys. And it's just, I think he's going to be a huge asset to this lineup. And I think just having somebody who's also willing to take the singles when they have to just move the lineup along goes a long way. When you seems like the offense is kind of built on the home run ball, having a guy that's able to hit the ball the other way, put the ball in play for singles and get on base, I think is going to be huge for this Orioles team this year.
And Steve, I always laugh when people, when it's such a small sample size, and Ward, his first couple of games, he's not doing much, and everyone's saying, "Oh, get him out of the leadoff spot, And now look, he's been their best hitter at this point. Had his first career 4-hit game a few days ago, and 3 hits again today.
Well, he is doing something this year he has done earlier in his career, and that's see a lot of pitches. He was one of the AL leaders last year in pitches per plate appearance. I think he was 4.2. He's 4.3 right now to begin this year. So this is not an outlier. He sees a lot of pitches. He's a patient hitter. I'm sure if it's right down the middle, he'll attack the 0-0. But if it's not, if it's on this corner, he might spin on it and get in the count he hopes that he can handle. So a real professional hitter. And I think, guys, and I'll start with you, Brad, that the veteran Ward, Alonso, Bassett, Kittredge, Helsley, I mean, that's a lot of veteran power in that clubhouse. And they all seem to be happy to mentor younger guys over 6 months of baseball. And they've already been together, obviously, through spring. I just see that having a good impact on the entire roster.
It does. And I think the key to what you said was that they're willing, because there's a lot of veterans that aren't necessarily willing to put in the time with the young guys. It's not everybody, but you come across them every once in a while. But the fact that they're willing to sit and help guys, and that I think they seem to me to be very comfortable or make other guys really comfortable to come to them, which is also the other huge X factor in that equation, is having these guys being open, but having these young guys being able to go to them at any time and ask them like, "Hey, what are you seeing? What should I be doing? What should I be working on?" And I just think that, like you're saying, it's huge for them, and it's huge over 6 months because they're just going to keep getting better and better and have a better chemistry as they go along here during the season.
I remember Ben McDonald was on with us a couple of weeks ago, and Ben talking about a story in which the team was kind of lackadaisical, running through some defensive drills, and Chris Bassett got everybody together and said, "Hey, we got to run this right." And Ben McDonald told us that he went in Craig Albernez's office later that day and said, "Look, there hasn't been this type of leadership on this team in recent years." And heck, I think back to when the Orioles played the Netherlands in an exhibition game, and Pete Alonso calling a mound visit, the first baseman calling a mound visit, Steve. So that's the type of leaders those guys are.
Big Bad Morning Show, Vinny and Haney, Inside Access, live on YouTube weekdays 6 till 6. Search Baltimore 105.7 The Fan. Subscribe for daily shorts right to your phone and never miss what you missed. 105.7 The Fan.
Well, there's been a lot of talk early coming out of spring of the good vibe and good chemistry of the Orioles. Albert has even mentioned, we even made the NRI guys in spring feel like they're completely part of the team, non-roster invites. He said, I haven't seen that a lot where there's such a togetherness. But he also said the great chemistry we have now, we'll see how that holds up when things go wrong. And this is kind of a time when we're going to see really if that vibe in there and the togetherness is really legit. And if it stays together and, because in the social media age, 3-6 is not like in 1982, 3-6, or even 2002, 3-6.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think sometimes being on the road like they are is the best thing you need for something like that. It builds, the flight, the bus ride, not being with all the families at the time. It's just kind of like it's a little getaway. So I know the 3 games didn't go well, but like you're saying, you hope to see some improvements here in Chicago, and hopefully this flight tonight, they get to hang out with each other and just kind of talk about baseball and even if they don't talk about baseball, but they're together and they're going through this all together. And it's like you're saying, you're going to see it pays dividends at some point with good chemistry. I think it's one of those games. The thing in the game today that's really overlooked are good clubhouse guys. A lot of front offices don't see it as this huge asset anymore like it used to be. And that goes a long way. You can tell the teams in the playoffs in October and September, they really enjoy being around each other. And if that's truly is the case with this team and they stay together and they do enjoy being around together, they're going to be there right at the end and they'll have a shot at the playoffs come September and October.
What's really going to be interesting, guys, is the immediacy. Who's going to start for them tomorrow? Because Cade Povich, when he got brought up, when Geraldo got put on the 15-day IL, people thought that he was just going to slot right into tomorrow because Trevor Rogers is starting Tuesday, and I believe Kyle Bradish on Wednesday. It's still TBA tomorrow. So Povich, he helped really save the pen today, man. 5 2/3. That was definitely one of the bright spots in a not so great game, but my assumption would be, Steve, maybe Albert Suarez gets the spot start, and you're kind of leaning into the bullpen that should be fresh after today.
Yeah, and Big Al went 3 a couple days ago,
Wednesday,
so maybe he could go 3 or 4 or 5 if everything's perfect. But you're right. Povich saved the bullpen like Big Al did when he came up because everybody will be available tomorrow. Cano got 1 out today, and so might be like not a 1 inning start, but it might be a 3 or 4 innings. So we'll see how that one's going to play out in Chicago. But so guys, the Orioles are 3-6, and we've discussed some of the not great and some things that we do like so far. But let's talk about if this lineup is going to get rolling, and it hasn't yet. 8 runs in 3 games in Pittsburgh. The top of the order might show the way. We've discussed Ward, the great start he's off to. Gunnar, we know what he could do batting second, and Alonso third. That is a pretty tough 1, 2, 3. And I think it's been interesting that's been the lineup 9 out of 9. 1, 2, 3 has been the same for all 9 games. And Brad, do you think that's how Albernaz is going to stick with it? He kind of likes those 3 in that order.
I think so. I think at this point with 9 games, I know it's not a lot, but I think he's shown his hand on those are the 3 guys he wants in those spots, and they're going to have 160 to 162 starts. And I think that's what you're going to see 1, 2, 3. And obviously from there, you can kind of play with it and move guys around if you want. Maybe Pete slots back into 4 if you want to move Adley up to the 3 spot or something like that. But I think those 3 are who you're going to roll out with 1, 2, 3 every single game. And I would want that 3 as my top 3 to start off every game if I was a manager too. So I don't think it's any surprise to anybody, but it'll be interesting to see if that's how they continue to go, or if the offense continues to not get things going quite as much, if they try to just switch the numbers around. But I think those 3 guys are going to be 1, 2, 3 in whatever order they actually put them in.
I think so too. And look, I still have questions about the bullpen. I still have questions about the defense, but guys, this lineup's going to hit. I really, really believe that. The fact that they've been held to 2 runs or less in 5 of these 9 games, it's very surprising. And we knew that strikeouts were going to be a part of this team. Now, they have been walking more to start this year, but no walks today to 14 strikeouts. Taylor Ward, he's really, really hot right now. You're still waiting for Gunnar to get going. Pete had a double today, but that was only his 2nd extra base hit because he had the home run last week and then a double today. So Pete's going to hit. the power is going to be there for him. And really, you could say, Steve, the 4 spot's been pretty consistent because it's been Adley or Samuel Basayo who was in the lineup today. And obviously Adley, as we talked about earlier, is off to a great start.
Yeah, it's interesting. Some guys I think like to know where they're hitting every night. Others say just put me in there. I don't care where. I mean, Gunnar, I asked him before the first game, where do you think you'll hit? Where would you like to hit? He goes, I think it'll be in the top 2, and that's good for me. 1 or 2 works for me. And so it's kind of interesting now. A lot of teams go with their best guy hitting second, but that's a potent 1, 2, 3 for the Orioles. And I think also Albernaz likes having 2 righties around Gunnar, so you can't always match up left on left. There's 3 batter rule you have to face. So now if a guy comes in to face Gunnar for the left on left, he's either going to, if he's got to stick around and face Alonso. Yeah. So that's probably how he stacked it that way.
Yeah, and I think when you were talking about Taylor Ward seeing pitches, we know Gunnar likes to swing first pitch. So what better than to have a guy who's going to see on average 4 to 5 pitches in at bat. He's on first, Gunnar coming up. He's coming up. Now he's ready to go first pitch. And to me, that's a great, I think Taylor Ward is really going to help Gunnar this year do even better, just because I think when you like to swing first pitch and you have a guy who goes up there looking to swing first pitch as the leadoff guy, you're really kind of hesitant to want to swing at that first pitch again if he happens to get out. Because now you're looking at 2 pitches, possibly 2 outs. And I'm not going to say Gunnar's going to be up there not trying to hit the first pitch if the guy gets out on the first pitch, but I'd say you're a little bit hesitant there. I know whenever I was facing guys that if the leadoff hitter was hitting and he swung at the first pitch and I got out, I felt so much better about the inning. And with Gunnar out there swinging first pitch too, you could see yourself getting 2 pitches and 2 outs or 2 pitches and 3 outs. And I just think Taylor Ward is really going to help Gunnar this season be able to just go out there ready to fire. Then talking about Pete, he's one of those guys you know is going to hit 35 to 40 home runs. He's proven it year in, year out. So whether they come now or they come somewhere, I mean, he's going to have his numbers. And that's the beauty of having somebody like Pete Alonso in your lineup. You know exactly what you're going to get. He's proven it year after year.
Well, and that's the thing that's so exciting about that top 3. Taylor Ward hit over 30 home runs, drove in over 100 runs last year. Pete Alonso, over 30 home runs, over 100 RBIs. Gunnar Henderson, a couple years ago, hit 37 bombs. The power was down last year because of the shoulder impingement, and he had the intercostal strain during spring training. So that's 3 guys with a ton of thump in that top third of the lineup.
Yeah, it's interesting with the Orioles not collectively hitting right now, and some guys are hot and some guys aren't. We see it every year. Somebody who was great in spring training starts 150. Someone who was hitting 400 in Florida, the opposite. And so it's just going to take a couple guys to get going. But I think, guys, and again, I'll get back to the point of a couple minutes ago, in a social media era, there's so much pressure on this team right now at 3-6 and coming off of last year, 75 wins. So that can kind of swallow up a team, I think. I hope it doesn't happen to this Oriole team, and they just need maybe 1 or 2 guys to make 1 or 2 plays and get a couple wins and hopefully get rolling as we wrap this up and they head into Chicago. It's time for that. We're all agree. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah, they'll get it. And I think they're going to get there. I think it's just when you talk about, you're saying they only scored 8 runs or like they've only scored 2 runs. It's like almost shocking to hear that this lineup has only scored 2 runs in 5 of the games. And this past series only scored 8 runs. Like we said, I don't think the scoring runs is going to be an issue for this team. And I think once the weather starts to warm up a little bit, we know how Cammy Yards plays. Once the weather gets a little bit warmer, balls will be jumping out there left and right. And the power will come, the thump will be there. And the guys at the bottom of the lineup, Beavers is swinging it well. That I think is going to be a huge key for this offense, just to have those guys be able to wrap the lineup back around, because those pitchers know those guys are there 1, 2, 3. Getting those guys on base in the bottom of the lineup is where the runs are going to come from once the offense starts getting going. And I think the guys in the bottom might actually help set the tone for the guys at the top here, just to kind of get things rolling here early on.
No, I completely agree. And someone we were talking about last week on the show was Colton Cowser, and another guy that has really been seeing a lot of pitches this year. We haven't seen the power from Cowser yet. We know that there is swing and miss, but he had been better. I know he struck out a couple times over the weekend, but having him in the bottom third of the lineup, taking a lot of pressure off of him, and we know that he can steal a bag as well. So Yeah, I think just turning this lineup, and Blaze Alexander's done a great job of that as a
Mhm.
9-hole hitter.
Well, guys, we covered a lot of ground in about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think for a first show, if we don't say so ourselves, I think it went pretty well. I want fans to know you're watching our first show, our debut show, Birdland Territory. We're going to be here all season. Steve, Brad, and Tim covering all aspects of the Orioles. Please subscribe. Please follow. We'll be all over our social media here in the next few days, letting you know we're on the air now. We're out here and we're not going anywhere. We'll be around a lot, three or so times a week. So fans will see shows pretty often. So Brad, day one went well.
Oh, I hope so. I hope it went well. I'll get there with, like I said, start watching more baseball now and getting to follow the Orioles on a daily basis is fun. I'm going to be watching with my kids, give them something to watch. So I'm hoping the O's can be a winner. Every team we've watched so far has been losing games. So I'm like telling my son, at one of these points, you're going to start winning a lot of games here. It'll be fun to watch these games.
Tim, we're going to have some fun this year.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely really looking forward to being with you guys multiple times a week. Hopefully the O's are able to get back on track this coming week.
So thanks for watching today and be tuning in with us all year on Birdland Territory. For Brad Brach and Tim Barbalace, I'm Steve Melewski, and we'll talk to you next time.